Greetings, co-Lightworkers.
We are Kristin, Angie, Robyn, Ava, and Toma, a group of mediums, intuitives, and healers.
We are the 5 Lightworkers.
And we are here as guides and students amid this great awakening.
Welcome to our show.
Ava, you shared that video with Patch Adams, and I watched it, and I was like, oh my God. This is exactly what I think all the time, which is why I have a hard time with money. Like, not money, but like receiving it for healing.
So when you think about Charlie Goldsmith, he doesn't charge money because he's like, well, I've gotten to some of these in these particular situations. And then sometimes I thought the money I got back wasn't really what I spent out energy-wise. So therefore I don't charge. And I'm like, it didn't make sense at the beginning, but I'm like, it does. It does make sense.
And Patch Adams, he managed to have this medical system of his own without
community.
The system, without the system. Yeah, community.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Without the system at all.
He stepped out of the 3D, basically. So then he didn't have the rules and constraints that all doctors and dentists or whatever would have.
He bypassed them all.
Really quick on the money part. And I've been thinking about this, and I think it all boils down to your intention. Because if you want to truly help people, and I see money as a energy exchange, there's a lot of corruptness in it, but also being able to receive. I have personally in my life, that's been a big lesson for me. Is I love to give, and it's a gift to me to give, and I love it, and it feels so good. And then when it comes to receiving, it's like, no, it's okay. I mean, I used to help my neighbor as a kid, and she'd watch her dog. I can't remember what it was. And I was probably less than 10, and she'd try to give me $20 and be like, no, you keep it. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. I'm like on the fence of this. I think a lot of it is your intention. How much are you willing to receive? And do we see money as an energy exchange? And there might be a time when you're like, I just want to do these free healings. That's what I'm feeling in my heart right now. And there may be other times where it's like, let's have a energy exchange right here for it. So I think a lot of it is the intention behind it. And that's just something I've been thinking about. I see this as a polarized topic in a lot of groups, honestly. It's like, oh, somebody has this gift. Why are you charging for this? And then, it's, I have to put food on my table and a roof over my head. And so it's like, yeah.
I'm so sorry for cutting you off, Ava, but it's really no different. So in my mind, right? So let's say one has a gift of mediumship, channeling. And then you get another person who's really skilled in roofing. Is there really any difference? Would you expect a roofer to go out and work 8 hours a day for free and then still put bread on the kids' table and to support, his own roof over his own life? Why would that be any different for somebody who channels for a living?
And I would totally expect if I went to go get a Reiki session from somebody to be charged.
It's individuals' issues for not being able to receive.
Correct. And
a belief that I believe it should be free for everybody. Like everybody can do this. Everybody should do this. And if somebody needs help doing it, then let's help them.
I think it's black and white, and it's so much in our society we think it's either or. I do believe it is things on that spectrum, and there is something about somebody that just gives without anything in return, and I think that really works. It's sustainable when other people give back.
Here's the danger is that if you're a giving person and then you're partnered up with somebody who likes to receive but not give, there's an imbalance, and that becomes a really huge issue. So there's a fine line. There's a narcissistic, I don't like to use that word, but
but just thinking of in terms of energy, right?
Yeah.
There's some that take. So then you're a prime target for that, and then your well is depleted. So there has to be like an overall understanding.
Instead of saying narcissistic relationship, can we say
Yeah.
challenging relationship? Because that's what it is, isn't it? Because now we're just giving them a name, and therefore we give the opposite name to ourselves, and we're binding the two together. That a giving person has to have a non-giving person, and now you're just binding them together. What if I call it a challenging relationship? It somehow it gives me a wiggle room.
You're right on, because we're attaching a label, and I didn't want to say it, but in society that's a common term, right?
I like how you saw that though, Toma. You see things from the opposite way all the time and put it together in a way that makes sense. I like that.
What were you going to say?
Well, first I was going to say that both parties in that sort of dynamic have wounds, and they're being expressed different ways. And then the other thing is labels can maybe be instrumental for you to understand something, but the problem with it seems like it's so difficult to not subconsciously put things in a box. So you think of, we were talking about diagnoses in a previous episode. Well, this diagnosis means this picture. So it's almost like you are thinking of a red car, and now when you go out you see red cars everywhere. So do we see what we believe? And I'm wondering, we don't have control over other people's actions.
You put a label on them of some sort, right? And you're putting a label of the way that you'd expect them to act being defined by that label. But then you're also in reverse doing that for yourself, because you're on the receiving end of the other person's behavior. So you're boxing the two of you up in that frame.
If you love someone, would you put that label? Because it is so overused, but to Ava's point, it does help define a certain behavior.
I get that.
Can we just act in love and see that they're running a program? And remove our emotional attachment.
What if you're not in that love position just yet? Maybe you're just, okay, I understand they're running a program. I understand. Yeah. Right. I'm at the wound moment. And I'm like, I'm not in the love situation yet. Yeah. I may be able to, at most, to remove myself a little further away so it doesn't hurt me as much. But I'm not in the love situation just yet.
We have to make sure we're loving ourselves in the process too.
So direct the love to you. Self-love. Right?
Yeah, in reality, labels are necessary, because we can just tune into the frequency and listen to that and adjust accordingly. Sometimes with certain experiences, as programs and whatnot happen, and we become a little more guarded. So we have these filters that we are interpreting our experiences around us with. And I think a lot of it can be from like this sort of self-preservation, on guard. Okay, I'm looking now. I am not going to let whatever happen again. So you have these certain filters, and that's good in a way, but it's also really difficult.
No, but you're right. You are safeguarding. But I think what you're saying, Ava, is what you have to do is look at yourself, at the patterns you're bringing in. Or what are my patterns? What am I running? Okay, I just did this again. Oh, I'm having the same thing again. So what am I doing? Instead of putting the blame outwardly, is like trying to examine oneself. Why do I keep attracting this in my life? So you're putting it to, and then that's where it's hard. It's hard. But
you're right. I mean,
but it is self-love. Like, so when I took ill, I realized it's like, oh my God, there's a pattern. What's the pattern? So I got into this thing of like identifying patterns, and it really helped me narrow things down. But you can do that in any part of your life. So then it became like, well, what's the pattern in my relationships? I'm doing similar things. So what am I? It's not the other it's not the outside. It's me. What am I doing? And a big part of that was self-love.
So sort of like, what patterns am I seeking out, really, is the question.
What am I being asked to learn? It goes back.
You didn't learn the lesson, so you're going back to it because you didn't learn the lesson. So it's like it's going to repeat. The pattern's going to repeat until you go, it's a pattern. I'm running this pattern. I get it now. And then you have to go and do the self-correct and the whole inward, healing and identifying.
it ties back to a conversation about victimization, and it's tough, but like there really is freedom in that self-responsibility, and we're not taking responsibility for other people's actions, because they again have to do that for themselves.
Yes.
Want them to do that, that's their own thing. But when we take it can be hard, but it's a little bit of a shift. But then once you do it, it's like, okay, what in me, what's going on here, and what do I need to learn, and what's my responsibility in this situation? Yeah.
It's
so
fun.
Like,
this is one thing that I do when I am feeling like that. So for a long time, I went through a lot of grief because my mom was really sick. Then she passed away. And then I went through a divorce, and that's like a death. And then I went through my dad dying. All this is like within 3 years. And so I noticed for me that when stuff like this comes up, the most simple way to start breaking it down is, how am I feeling? Like, I really want to be happy. I want to laugh. I want to have joy, but I can't do that right now. I just can't. Like, it's not even humanly possible to even fathom laughing right now. I've been in that place. And when I started looking inward and noticing that my pattern of behavior was this sadness all the time, I would sit down with myself and start, for me, it was journaling, but I started thinking, okay, I don't want this anymore. So what is it? Like, what is it that's making me feel this way? And how can I get through it? And you just have to, if that means like right now, in this moment, your truth is, I need to sob and cry, just let it out. I need to do that, then I need to do that. Like, it's a simple step, but it's almost like those little tiny things are what keep moving you forward. Because if you just keep stuffing it back, you're not healing it. And so
Sure.
I agree. You're identifying and you're releasing, right? So you're releasing that emotion through crying. But at some point you need to move to another level. And what helps you get there?
Right. And everybody has to figure that out for themselves.
And it's individual.
Yes. But you have to take that moment. For me, that's what I've noticed helped me, is I had to take that moment. I had to self-reflect about why am I feeling this way? And now, if it's like that, it's not as deep as the grief I had, but now it's little things like, okay, I was so crabby yesterday. What was that? And I'm feeling it again. So I will sit down and I'll be like, oh, that's what it was. I have to think back of what it was so that I can clear it. And then I can clear it. And then I'm like, do I need to do something about it? No. Should I do something about it? Yeah, I should. Let's do this. And then
You move it out.
Right. And then you move it out and you move forward.
Can I share a short little exercise?
Sure.
Not an exercise I came up with. It was actually Ava's friend, Rebecca Braxis, who was kind enough to share that. And I thought it was quite brilliant. So she was using the emotional guidance scale, and you had to look down to, what emotion am I right now in this very particular moment? Am I at joy? Am I at sad? Am I at anger? And pinpoint where you are in this particular moment. So let's say you're sad. Then pinpoint 3 emotions a good bit higher up from where you are that you'd rather be. For example, happy, elated, or even something in between there. And then you would tone for a minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, however long it felt good for you. And if you're not into Om, maybe just make up a sound in your mind, maybe out loud, and just kind of do that tone or series of tones. And after a short period of time, after a minute or 3 or 5 minutes, whatever felt good to you, to your body in that particular moment, go in and double check. Okay, am I still at sadness now? Or am I at joy where I want it to be? And maybe I'm not a joy, but maybe I'm somewhere in between sadness and joy. So at least if I'm not able to reach the joy that I wanted to, at least I'm able to move up towards the joy.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was very, very powerful tool.
Yeah, that the power of that sounding and the sound frequency is super powerful. And I mean, y'all were speaking on something that I think is a big question in a lot of people's heads. How do I know I have to heal. How do I heal? And I don't think it has to be forced. You were talking about, Angie, something's arising. If I stuff it down, it's not going anywhere. In fact, it's just going to hurt me more. Something's arising. Allow yourself to feel. What's my lesson in that? Clear it out. Because we don't want to demonize emotion. Anger can be an indicator that a boundary has been crossed. And so we don't want to say you can't have anger. It's allowing yourself to feel that in a safe way and then let it move through. And there's a plethora of these tools that we all talk about of how you let that move through, because it's all a frequency. Sounding, herbs, meditation, Reiki, there's just a nature, walking, animals, laughter. There's just so many different ways of helping transmute that. So I think you really pinpointed something, because for a very long time, I also wondered, it's so overwhelming. How do I heal? You know?
Yeah, I did the same.
Yeah.
Take it off. How do I know I had some trauma in childhood. How do I take it off me now?
And it's just as it arises.
Yeah.
Doesn't be forced.
Yep.
Because in that moment, then you're ready to, it's coming up because it's wanting to be cleared.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you heal your childhood trauma and all the trauma you've had through all your life? One bit at a time, one step at a time. You're not going to do it. Oh, I'm going to go and clear 20 years of trauma in a half a day. I don't think that's going to happen.
No. One emotion at a time.
What do you hear? I'd have one more goodbye. I take